Hello everybody and welcome to the latest in our series of speaker interviews. My name is Maurice Button, I'm the CEO of City and Financial Global, and it's my great pleasure to have with me today Natalie Wharton, who's the Managing Director of Wharton Business Consulting. And Natalie will be speaking at our forthcoming 9th Annual Culture and Conduct Forum for the Financial Services Industry, which is being held in London on the 23rd of November, so precisely 2 weeks' time. Natalie, welcome.
Thank you. Lovely to be here.
Very nice to have you with us. Let's turn to the questions. I suppose my first question is do CEOs and boards really get it that D&I is a source of competitive advantage in terms of both business performance as well as recruitment and retention of talented staff?
I think that's a really good question because we've talked about D&I for many years now. There's been various reports and lots of discussions, lots of targets, scorecards on it. And the business case is clear. With diversity at the table, we have richer discussions, there's more relevance in what we talk about, greater ideas and innovation, and decision-making is better and our organizations are stronger, and I think all CEOs and boards agree with that. I think the McKinsey's report in 2022 strongly highlighted that those organizations where gender diversity was present and they were at the top quartile of that, as well as cultural and ethical diversity, that actually they increased their profitability from between 25 and 34%. So research is there, business case is there, and it's well understood and known. Yet what I think is still an element which is less known or less accepted is actually how you retain that talent. How do you develop that talent? How do you make sure that talent feels safe in your organization so that they thrive? And that, for me, is the challenge that's still there.
Yes, and that's a considerable challenge. I suppose that there are a number of sort of structural issues, aren't there, where women, perhaps in the case of women, take one example of diversity, take time off to have their baby and then come back to the workforce, and how do they, at what level do they come back, what have they missed out, what are the pension issues, a whole lot of structural things that perhaps need to be addressed.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's the whole ecosystem with any organization, actually, that when you bring new individuals in who have different learning experiences and different ways of working, you need to really appreciate that and recognize that and think about how you need to adapt your organization to really build that talent and enable them to thrive.
So that still does remain as quite a challenge. And what about generational change and changing views of what work is? There are very different expectations, I think, from say millennials to much older staff. And how does that factor into the D&I debate?
Well, I think from a generational perspective, actually, it reinforces that principle and the expectation that firms are diverse, because young talent want to buy from, they want to promote, they want to join organizations that truly believe and represent diversity. So where it's just smoke and mirrors, they're not interested, and they can see through that. In fact, I was asking the question of some of my juniors here earlier today, and they said that what they've seen is there's a real openness to talk about diversity and really embrace it. And they expect that. They want organizations to be open and transparent about diversity. Plus, there's many facets of diversity that have evolved. So, gender diversity, as we were just talking about, is one that's well accepted. Business case is clear. Cultural diversity and race as well. But this new diversity that has a lot more focus now, and it's important that organizations think about all those areas of diversity, from identity, social backgrounds. So it's really important for our young talent that these areas of diversity are embraced, and at least that an organization will move towards that. So, small boutique organization, you may not be able to get all of those areas of diversity in your organization just because of your size, yet as long as you're making the right efforts forward, as long as you've got the right principles in place, I think that's important. Because when we look at some organizations, they really need to make quite bold decisions and be quite brave around diversity to really accelerate into the future. I think we've all seen that, there'll be initiatives around Black History Month, International Women's Day, praising their scorecards and what they've achieved. Yet it has to be quite a systemic change in an organization to really move them forward. And I think sometimes we forget there's still a war on talent, and it's important not only to attract the talent in, but think about how we are ensuring that when they arrive, that they have everything to really equip them.
Yeah, I think that's all very, very good points. I mean, trying to get the notion that D&I is essential for business performance and success in multiple different ways into the DNA of an organization, I think is quite hard. As you say, there are individual initiatives, or for a period of time people might push a certain policy, but to make it so that it's second nature, surely that's a challenge.
Yeah, definitely. And I think, if we think about some of those challenges in the organisation, one point that we're going to be talking quite a bit at on our panel, and I'm delighted with the other panelists that are there and all of their experience and knowledge, is that we need to enable those voices to have a voice. You might have diversity at the table, whether that's at board level, exec level, or all areas of the organisation, but if they have a voice and it is listened to and it is valued and it's not marginalized, and we're able to do something with that voice, that's what's really important. And that's where organizations need to change. We still do a lot around speaking truth to power and making sure that those voices are heard, because without that voice, again, it just, we can't really embrace it. And I think that's the biggest challenge for organizations, is to make sure that voice is valued. Secondly, for me, it's around the ways of working, which I touched on earlier. It's around how do we create, nurture and protect our talents, our culture, that diversity. How do we enable people to perform equally to everyone else in their organization? And a lot of that comes down to thinking about our systems and processes, where there might be bias towards certain styles, certain characteristics, certain expectations, when those are quite different. When you have such a variety of talent in your organization, making sure that you're managing people in the right way, that the performance structure is really recognizing and incentivizing people to be inclusive in your organization, and thinking about the language we use. So it's so important to be really aware of our language and how we embrace that and how we are talking about the language. I know in some organizations, they're very conscious of not saying men and women, and they're talking about people in organizations. So trying to be really aware of gender identification and what that means for people. So we need to really think about everything in our organization. And lastly, I guess another key challenge for me is as we're moving, many organizations are looking to move to a set number of days now back in the office. We've seen it across all industries, and I talk to a lot of clients around how they're going to encourage their people to move back to the office. But the physical workplace needs to really consider how people work differently across different diversities. How do we make people feel safe and supported and equipped to do their job in the best possible way?
Yeah, so really it's a holistic approach. It's all these elements, isn't it? So I'm very interesting. Sadly, our time's run out, Natalie, but it's always a great pleasure to talk to you. And you have some very good insights there. So Natalie, of course, speaking to our viewers now, will be talking at the conference at the 9th Annual Culture and Conduct Forum for financial services in London in 2 weeks' time. We very much hope that you'll be able to join us in person or virtually if need be. So just remains for me to say thank you so much, Natalie. A real pleasure.
Thank you. Looking forward to it.